So before we get started, I'll do a little background about myself. My name is Raychell Harris. I am a faculty librarian at Palm Beach State College, the Lake Worth campus, and I received my bachelor's in sociology and criminal justice at Florida Atlantic University, and my master's in information at Florida State University. So basically what that means is I am local, I am used to our students. Yes, go Knowles. I have some familiarity and can connect with them in that way, know some of our schools. And basically I am very passionate about research. I enjoy researching in my spare time. I do it for my own personal matters. And I believe that students should really understand how useful it is in their lives. So as a librarian, a college librarian, I see a lot of college freshmen. And what I see most is that students are intimidated by a college library, not knowing what we offer or where to start. They're often overwhelmed because they didn't think to retain the skills that you all taught them, not realizing their importance in the future. So if we can ensure their knowledge from high school or even middle school, we can all focus on their immediate needs and assignments. And as we're all aware, research skills are necessary in all aspects of life. So we just want to make sure we're prepared. Hi, Elizabeth. Let's see. So with now all of that being said, excuse me, I'm a note person, so I'll be reading those today. Where are you guys from? Can you tell me if are you from high school, middle school, what locations you're all at? Let me know in the chat box so I know what to address today. All right, Glade Central, hello. West Boca High, I'm in the Boca area. I live in the Boca area, hello. Jupiter High, Woodlands Middle. Okay, so we have some middle and high school today. All right, perfect. Atlantic High School. No worries, Juanita, if anyone gets kicked out, just come right back in. If you have any questions, feel free to ask throughout. I will be asking at the end if you have any questions. And just like a regular class, use your microphones, chat box, whatever you're most comfortable with. All right, let's see. Oh, we got elementary. Okay, Avid. All right, perfect. So some of the things I will be talking about today, of course, are a little more advanced than what you may need. But remember that you can always adjust it to your needs and your students' needs. All right. So you'll notice everything listed on the agenda is kind of simple. And I approach it that way because it translates better for students. From my experience, it's easier for them to digest. So when I speak today, it'll be somewhat similar so that you get a sense of what they're receiving and how we can complement each other. So we're going to be going over the basics, basically knowing the necessary differences and definitions, getting started with research. So kind of the before, during, and after, and I can go into that a little bit more, and also implementation, the best time for review. And if I speak too fast at any point, please let me know if you'd like me to repeat or slow down, and I can do that for you. So sometimes you may ask yourself, where should I start? Now, I know you're all very into the needs of your students. You're all teaching information literacy. You're making sure they're reading, they're learning. But what if you need just a refresher? So we're going to start with the basics. And what do you all think I mean when I say the basics? How to cite sources, how to find them, okay? Credible sources, yes. What is research? Rebecca, I do like that, yes. Validity, okay. So these are actually all great things to know. Let's see, what resources should I have available? Scholarship info, research, okay. Yes, I do like all of that. Why do we use sources? It's a good starting point. And believe it or not, I'm actually going to start with something else. Yes, the research process in general, or what is research, is really great. But typically, students, when they're coming here, at least they know that much. So when I say the basics from our perspective, I mean something a little bit different. When we ask students a simple question, what is the difference in types of libraries? A lot of the times we have students that don't know the difference between an academic library, a public library, and a media center, right? So they've been to these locations, but they don't know that. So once we get past that, the next big question, or what they don't know, so this is going to be our basics, is the difference between a catalog and a database. Now, I know you wouldn't think of this as a basic, so to speak, but when they do their research, a lot of the times they'll go directly to the catalog because that's what they know. They don't think to go to a library database. They don't think of what we're subscribing to. So when you're all teaching your students, thank you very much for teaching them what research is, the research process, going over citing their sources. Let's see, scholarship information, that is all great. But something I really hope you can drill into them is the difference between catalog and a database. So kind of emphasize that catalog contains locally owned library materials. They use it with you all the time. So that's mainly, at least from our perspective, that's mainly where they're going for print and electronic books, maybe some periodicals and AV materials. Now, when I teach about the call number and I teach about the catalog, I like to use an easy comparison. So I say the call number is the address of the book, short and sweet. The catalog is the address book, and the stacks are the neighborhood, right? It makes it really easy for them to remember. So when we do an activity and they have to look for a book, I tell them, remember guys, you need to find the address of the book before you can look in that neighborhood and find it. So something like that could help them remember what a call number is. When they come to us, I ask them what's a call number. You wouldn't believe some of the answers we get sometimes. And if you guys have any examples of what you do to help your students remember things, please share them. We can all share with each other, see what's going on with it, within our area and with our colleagues. And then lastly, under the catalog, I say Dewey Decimal versus Library of Congress, right? When they are in K through 12, they're going to be very familiar with Dewey Decimal System. But when they come over here, we're working with the Library of Congress classification. Now, it's not a huge deal. I do like to point out to them that, it is similar and they can take those same principles and apply that here. But maybe when they're in junior year, senior year, just let them know that they may be expecting a change in how they find books in the library. Let them know that there are different classification systems, and that's something that they should look out for when they come to college or university. Now, for databases, how many of you use databases in your classes? I'm sure everyone does. I just want to make sure. And you explain what it is. Yes. See some head nods. It's just like I'm teaching a class. Okay, perfect. So, like I said before, they don't always know the difference between the two. So just emphasize that databases are general and discipline specific library subscriptions, excuse me. So we subscribe to them, they have full access to them, and it will broaden their searches and provide them with so much more information. Emphasize that the different types of articles that are in there. So we have our journal articles, our magazine articles, newspapers, government documents, and also ebooks. There's an expanded array of ebooks there as well. And you don't have to get into this one too much, but maybe just a few tips for advanced search, basic versus advanced search. And I say this because a lot of the times, we're kind of starting with the sentences. I tell them, what's the difference between Google and a database? Google can handle that sentence you ask it, that who, what, where, why, or how question, but a database cannot. It's going to take all those words and it's going to mess up your results. So maybe talk to them about that, and then the difference between a basic and advanced search. And then lastly, the helpful tools that are available in databases, get them familiar with it. I know some of you use Noodle tools, right? That's great. But in databases, we also have those citation tools in there, those computer generated citations. I like to say that so they know that mistakes are present. Sometimes it's not always perfect. And then also accessibility. Let them know if they need help, changing the size, or they need to change the language or the font. That's all available to them. It can be read to them. So there's no limit in the information that they're finding. However they need it presented to them, it is available. And then also, 100% most important thing when it comes to databases is save that information they find. Please, please, please emphasize to them that once they find something, they need to save it. I don't care if it is Google Drive, if it's an email, downloading it to their computer, printing it, no matter what, they need to know, they need to save their information or their sources. A lot of the times we have students that write their papers, and they write the information that they find, but then they don't put where they got it from, and we have to go back and find it. Some of the links they have, they don't work. They don't know to use those permalinks, or they just have to start over all over again, because they didn't list where they found it. So those are just some things to remember. And I'm actually going back really quickly. When it comes to research, one of you said, "What is research, Rebecca?" I really like that, because if you tell them what is research, you can also go into the research process, and you can tell them, please, you have to do your research before you write your paper, right? You wouldn't believe how many students we have that write their papers and leave their research for the very end. They don't realize that it's a integrated process, and they need that research, that evidence to support what they're saying. So if we can emphasize that, that would be really great. So off the top of your heads, or if you have something in front of you, or something you're doing in the upcoming semesters or year, what is the approach that you use telling your students about the research process? Yes, the note cards, Elizabeth. Actually, I'm going to talk about that today. That's perfect. I love that. So this one, someone might want to use their microphones, or let me know in the chat box, but how do you approach the research process?
So there are resources, and Palm Beach State actually has one where there is an electronic note card feature available. But what I teach my kids, both at the high school and college level, is I just have a Google slide template for electronic note cards. And that's been really, really helpful. And then we just change the order before they write their paper in order to make that match their outline. And then when they sit down to write their paper, they have everything. And even on that note card, I require them to put their in-text citation. So it's already done when they sit down to write.
Love that. Love that. Yes, that's a great free approach to it, because there are some paid services you can use that do something similar, but definitely utilize the Google environment. I love Google Drive and everything it offers me. So yes, I agree with that one. Anyone else? How do you guys approach it? I know we have a good amount of people in here. Okay, let's see. Yes, they will be using the Microsoft environment, OneDrive definitely. But so a lot of the outreach that myself and a colleague do, a lot of the times we actually emphasize using Google, just because it stays with them throughout their entire lives. I'm going to talk in the other session about a program that we have with Trio. And we use Google Drive so they can build a portfolio, keep track of their resources, all that type of thing, just because we know they had it K through 12, they can have it now, and they can have it later on in life. It stays with them.
I think one thing too is I talk about just the reason for doing research, like the importance of it, and why we want to avoid plagiarism and things like that. So that's one.
Yes, thank you. I love that. In our SLS classes, that's one of the things we have, Introduction to the College Experience. We have to go over that. What is plagiarism? And I will say all of you are doing an awesome job. majority of them know exactly what plagiarism is and why they want to avoid it. Let's see, Kimberly, electronic note cards. So we aren't using Google at all. Kimberly, can you explain, or Elizabeth, I think, okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm new to the county, so I don't know what an electronic note card is. And then someone said, so we are transitioning to Office. We're not using Google anymore.
Oh, no, don't worry about that. Palm Beach State College, or a lot of colleges and universities actually, they use Office for everything. So OneDrive, Teams.
Right.
Yeah, we're using that. Now the students should get familiar with it, especially with their emails, but you don't have to, worry about that too much. That's more on our end.
Okay.
Juanita, they'll understand it when they're a little older. Okay, let's see. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay. So the research process. Now I split this up into before, during, and after, just so it's easier to kind of give to students, right? Because when you're first thinking of research or you're first learning about it, it is a lot of information. It is overwhelming. Just a basic introductory class that we have here are one-shots. That can be too much information sometimes. So it's good to break it up. Now, I usually say, research or librarian in the beginning of your paper, and then librarian at the end of your paper. So that's one approach, right? Or you can give the research process to them broken down. So before, we'll talk about introduction to research, like you all said. It's a process, okay? So they need to know that it involves the planning, it's creativity and flexibility as well. A lot of the times, it's a very narrow approach, and they sometimes think kind of limited in their search techniques. So let them know, it doesn't have to be that way. If you start off with a plan, you know that it's going to take time. You're not going to easily find something in 10 minutes. You'll be prepared for what you have. Now, when it comes to creativity, like I said, you don't want any limitations. Let them know that they can think of different ways to approach something. If I'm thinking about, space tourism, right? Maybe I'll think about, oh man, came up with this example. Now it's lost. Space tourism, but maybe I want to think about the time it takes to travel to space, right? Or astronauts, what it's like being in that environment. It may not necessarily be what I'm looking for right now, but it's a good brainstorming activity. And also it can help them find connections that they didn't realize were there before. Now, I know you're all doing this already, but it's just great to emphasize it again and let them know that it will come up. And then flexibility. Like I said, as long as they know it's not going to be as easy as 1, 2, 3, let them know so that they're prepared. And if it doesn't work out one way, they can easily pivot and go another direction. For me, that flexibility comes with the rabbit hole. I can find something and I can go deep dive into something completely offhand, but just know that you can come back and it's a good way to approach it. Now, background information, so topic information, related issues and subjects. Usually when I'm in class, I usually say something like, let's say I'm looking up soda. I could look up carbonated beverages. I could look up the beverage industries, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo. I could look up all these different issues or different topics related to it. And then also subtopics, what comes underneath that. So it's a great place to start with encyclopedias. A lot of professors may say not to go to Google or Wikipedia, but for some general background information, something you want to learn more about, I say go ahead, as long as you know that's not the source. So as long as they know they're not using as a source, please go ahead. And then also maybe point out some headings and subheadings so they know the organization of the information they're looking at. Now, lastly, show them how to identify keywords. I said previously that I tell them, what's the difference between a Google and a database search. So if you tell them to identify those keywords ahead of time, they're reading and they see something popping up, let them know to highlight that or keep track of that. So they can look over the material and figure out which specific words they need and which ones will be helpful in their searches. A lot of the times, like I said, they limit themselves and they don't think of alternatives. So maybe, let's say space. So I said space before, so space, let's see, what is the circumference of the sun, right? Something super basic. If they're in a database, I would tell them, okay, we're not gonna ask that question. We're gonna look up the sun, we might look up the solar system, may do space, the universe, whatever, something related, or those different keywords. Just make sure that you're emphasizing that so they know that they're not limited to that one keyword that they initially found. So this is your search techniques and your sources, locating and management of them. So I did kind of go over them in that previous one, but search techniques, Boolean operators, a lot of times students do not know what those are. I would say they should know that from high school, maybe even middle school. Even elementary school, depending on what you're teaching them, you could do something simple, maybe like the red door. You could teach them how to look for just simple phrases. Again, phrase searching, make sure they know those quotation marks, that they can put that around something so it can look for something specific. And also the filters or limiters. A lot of the times they'll get a large number of results and they won't even think to narrow it down. So just show them where they are, maybe start with something simple like subjects so they know that they do have that option. Now, I will say for proximity, truncation, and wildcards, I would leave this for your advanced courses. It's not necessarily a life or death situation if they don't know it before they come here, basically. We're here to teach them those advanced techniques, work on those advanced papers, so we can always do that with them. Now, sources, locating and management. Like I said before, knowing the difference between a library catalog and databases, evaluating sources. I know a lot of you go over that already, especially with internet sources. Here we use the CRAP test. I like to tell them CRAP test ensures you're not finding crap sources. And then saving those sources. I mentioned this before, cloud storage, email, citation managers, Noodle Tools is one of my favorites. And I believe some of you also have that available to you. Kimberly, were you the one that said you were new to the county? Okay.
Yeah.
So Noodle Tools actually has that note card option, which is the last one, organizing information. So you have the option of exporting your sources there, and then you can easily organize your paper, add little notes to the note card, or even tell them, print something out and annotate it. That's a good way to work with them to make sure that they know how to take the information they need and apply it to their papers.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Elizabeth, too.
All right. So we're almost there. If you have any questions, I'm going to try and rush through so we can get to them. Just let them know the research process at the end. The end part, we're talking about plagiarism. Yes, Noodle Tools is great. APA 7th edition, please push that so they're not using the 6th edition. It does make it easier for students. MLA 9th edition, minimal changes, but there are new resources for them to see. Citation managers like Noodle Tools and Zotero. I personally love Zotero because it teaches them how to build a citation themselves. And also the style guides that are available to them. So the handbooks, MLA and APA, as well as the Bedford Handbook. Last but not least, implementation. Okay, so I would recommend for my high school, my elementary and middle school, maybe at least once do something basic with them, especially that last year of middle school, prepare them for high school, get them started. But for my high school media specialist freshman year, definitely make sure you're doing that introduction and you're following up on it. And then maybe some advanced techniques or review junior and senior year. So what to expect in college. And then of course, you can also always contact us here at the Lake Worth campus. We specifically have this partnership with you guys, and we can help you with anything else that you need. I know it can be difficult to reach your students, but just make sure they have a refresher, and it'll help prepare them for when they come to any college or university. Ooh, okay, 3 minutes to spare. So I'm going to put something in the chat box for you really quickly. And this is basically a handout that I usually give my dual enrollment students, but I want to give it to you as well so that you know that you can contact me through this information, or if there's something more advanced that you need to pass on to a librarian at PBSC, you can do that. And I put that in the chat box for you just now. Sharon, this session has been recorded, so you should have this available to you. And really quickly, if anyone has any questions, oh yes, I can email it to you, Lisa. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And if we can't get it now, please feel free to email me. Excuse me. Had to fit everything in there. Okay. All right, seems like we don't have any questions, Lisa. So thank you, everyone. I know it was a lot and you're all doing a great job. Just want to make sure that they're a little better prepared. Some of the students that don't remember everything, they know what to expect. All right, thank you guys.